Hey, Matt, I mean, you know what? Talk about last week being great games of football, lots of dramatic games. And this week, we are in for some good ones coming up.
We are in for some good ones, and also the next set of college football playoff 12 team format has been released. We will go over that as well because there are some interesting scenarios coming out of Week 13 in college football. But the NFL is where we have to begin.
First things first, we got to start with the New York Jets. They made another move that Woody Johnson made because he scapegoated Robert Saleh earlier in the season, and now he has scapegoated Joe Douglas. I mean, Joe Douglas obviously has done a tremendous job um, rebuilding this roster. He did a great job in the draft, but they're not producing results. And I don't fault this on Joe Douglas, the Joe Douglas firing. This is on Woody Johnson.
I mean, this was unnecessary. I really think it was unnecessary. I mean, Joe Douglas did everything he possibly could to cater to Aaron Rodgers, to cater to Woody Johnson. He drafted really well in 2022. He had Mike McDonald in 2023. He had a couple really good picks. I think the problem was that the ownership wasn't proud of the results on the field, but that's not entirely his fault. He drafted really well. I think it just mattered coaching. I think coaching was the problem. I mean, Robert Saleh is at fault for that, but then you also got to look at how Jeff Ulbrich has managed to coach this team, and that's a different story for a different day. But I I think the one bright spot of that Jets organization was Joe Douglas, and now he's gone. And if you're the Jets, I don't know where you go from here.
Yeah, there's questions about if Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing in 25. Do you think that's happening, or do you think whoever takes over as the new head coach and new general manager is going to want their own personnel?
It's funny you mentioned that because there was rumors circulating about Woody Johnson saying he was going to bench Aaron Rodgers eventually if things don't get better this season. And it's possible that Aaron Rodgers could possibly leave New York because this is Woody Johnson's team now, and there's no one to tell him otherwise of how to run the organization, how to coach the organization. He brought in Jeff Ulbrich, and all that could be done at this point is for Woody Johnson to manage this team the way he has. And honest to God, I think there's going to be a significant amount of changes coming into next year's roster.
Well, if you look at next year's roster for the Jets, I still think Garrett Wilson will be a part of it. I think Sauce Gardner will be a part of it, and Quentin Williams too. I think those are your core players. I feel like they need to look at the quarterback position very carefully.
And I think at this point, there are so many college quarterbacks that are coming out, and you and I both said this college quarterback class is not the best quarterback class coming out, but it's better than what the Jets have right now. And honestly, like I said, I don't see Aaron Rodgers staying in Gang Green in 2025, especially with Woody Johnson tearing the organization apart, except for his core players.
Oh, absolutely. This is probably the if you talk about the Jets and they're trying to, this was a team that was supposed to end their longest playoff drought in the history of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it, it's hasn't gone the way it hasn't gone the way everybody should that everybody expected to, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think the fact that the playoff drought is going to continue because I don't see the Jets making the playoffs at all this year. The fact that it's continuing, he's just leaving Woody Johnson scratching his head for answers, and I don't think that keeping the same roster would benefit at all. So I would look for the Jets to hire a new head coach. I don't know who they're going to hire. If I recommended a hire, I'd probably guess somebody along the lines of Mike Vrabel might get the job in Gang Green just because that's a guy who's been on the radar for the Jets for quite a while. They didn't want Robert Saleh for a while. So if they wanted a guy like Mike Vrabel who's been out of coaching for a year, I think I could see him coming back to Gang Green. But the problem is ownership has to get another general manager, another offensive coordinator, unless they keep Nathaniel Hackett. But right now things are just not going well, and they have to probably draft a quarterback just in case.
Absolutely, they do. This organization has just been a mess.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's no end in sight. And I mean, you had a feeling that this kind of thing was going to happen because the Jets were on their bye week. You figured that they were going to make some changes, but not to this extent. And now, I can't name one executive out there who would want the Jets job, especially with Woody Johnson at the helm.
I feel like no executive that's a candidate to be the general manager of the New York Jets. I don't think they want to work with Woody Johnson just because Woody Johnson. This is the Woody Johnson show here in the Big Apple, and Woody Johnson is very impatient. He wants to make all the hires. He always wants to win, but the Jets are not winning.
And you look at what has happened and what transpired since Woody Johnson became the owner in 2000. They bring in some big name players, they get injured or they don't produce. They hire head coaches and they all turn out to be busts. Adam Gase is his own separate category. I mean, you look at everything that Woody Johnson has done as owner, and they get you excited as a team, but then they disappoint you. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, it happens all the time, and I don't see any sort of sugarcoat. That's the problem.
Yeah, the Jets lost to the Colts by 1. I mean, the Jets have a bye week. We don't know their schedule's going to not be very favorable, but talking about the Dallas Cowboys getting held to 10 points to the Houston Texans. You told me after the game on Monday that this team is just terrible.
They're done. I mean, there's no way to put it. They're done. I texted you off air. I said they're finished. And you know what? I think we can both agree on that. This is a team that just cannot produce. I know Dak Prescott is gone, and I know that they're in a tough position. They played the Houston Texans on Monday night, but we're gonna get into this. We're gonna get into this with the Jaguars. I mean, this is a team that just basically gave up. They gave up. I mean, Mike McCarthy knows he's a dead man walking. I guarantee Jerry Jones is not going to bring him back because this is McCarthy's last year of his contract. But Cooper Rush, you had faith in him, and he has not done anything good. And that's the biggest issue. I mean, I hate teams that when they lose their star quarterbacks, they lie down. That's not the mentality that you should have.
Yeah, you can't lie down because of that. And I think that with the Cowboys, people were saying that since their loss to the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs last year, they did absolutely nothing to improve their roster.
No, they basically thought, you know what, we have a 12-win team from last year, let's run it back. But the problem is when you run it back and you make no changes, people are going to expect the same thing over and over and over again. And they're guaranteed to have a losing season because right now they're sitting at 3-7, but they're going to lose 2 more games along the way. They got the Commanders next week. And like I said, I just don't see things getting better. I only see Mike McCarthy not coming back. I think that Mike Zimmer is probably going to be replaced because his defense has been atrocious this year. And the result and the stats prove it. This defense gives up 30 points a game. And honestly, like I said, the offense, you pay Dak Prescott, you pay CeeDee Lamb, and what's happened? Nothing.
Well, that's the problem for the Cowboys is Jerry Jones and his whole post-game shenanigans. When you hear him speak after the game to the media, it's absolutely the same thing he says.
Yeah, he teases that there's going to be a change, that something different's going to come, but it never comes. And honestly, I think Cooper Rush is the best thing you got for the Cowboys. I don't want to see Trey Lance play. Trey Lance is terrible. Talk about a guy who fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah, we'll talk about their game in a minute against Washington, but talk about the Cincinnati Bengals losing again in a heartbreaker to the Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, they were once down 20-3. This was a comeback that was too little too late.
My heart breaks for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It breaks my heart. And what's even worse is that they're most likely not going to have T. Higgins next year. So that's even worse. Like, this Bengals team has been let down so badly by their defense. It's like hitting the repeat button with this team. They score 30 points and they lose because their defense can't hold the fort down. And I think that Lou Anarumo, I know you mentioned he's a good playoff defensive coordinator, but this regular season has been his worst job yet. No question about it. And if you're going to rely on someone's playoff decision making, that's fine. But you got to produce in the regular season. And right now, Lou Anarumo has not done it. And I sent you a list of coaches that I think could be fired, and I put Zach Taylor as one of them potentially.
Oh, man. I mean, if Zach Taylor gets fired, I'm sure Mike Brown is going to look at Joe Brady, and also Joe Burrow will be part of the search of the next head coach of the Bengals. If that happens, Joe Brady is on the top of my list. If as the Bengals head coach, if Zach Taylor gets fired because Joe Burrow loves Joe Brady.
And the thing with Joe Brady is he's helped coordinate a lot of great quarterbacks. I mean, he was Josh Allen's offensive coordinator once upon a time, and Josh Allen did really well under him. So I think it's just really just a matter of time before Zach Taylor is going to take a loss like this again, and the ownership's going to be like, okay, we've seen enough. Because I've complained about Zach Taylor's decision making, roster construction, all that, and unfortunately, I don't see a change.
So are you saying that if Joe Brady takes over the Bengals as the head coach, that's going to benefit Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase?
I think it should. I mean, they paid Joe Burrow already, so there's really nothing else you can do financially.
I think they're going to keep Jamar Chase. I think they're going to keep him for sure.
Yeah, the only problem with the Bengals is if you keep Jamar Chase, T. Higgins is going to most likely walk, and that's not good. But I think that if you have a new head coach, I think that could be really beneficial for your offense. But you also need to get some new defensive blood because I don't think Lou Anarumo is doing his job as well.
Yeah, it's been a bad year for Lou Anarumo and the Bengals, and Zach Taylor's probably in hot water because Zach Taylor has he's just overthinking himself.
Yeah, and that's not how leaders think. You don't overthink your decisions as a leader of men. And the problem, and I think this is going to be the same thing except for this head coaching cycle. This head coaching cycle, we could see potentially 7 or 8, maybe even 9 coaches gone, depending on how things go. I sent you that list. I think 6 coaches are gone, 2 are already fired, but I think at most 8, probably 9, depending on how things go. But I can't see 9 coaches getting canned, but probably 8.
Oh boy, we're gonna have a bit. We might have to do a Black Monday special.
Oh, yep.
A Black Monday special with all these head coaches getting fired. But I'm talking about the Bills beating the Chiefs to give Kansas City their first loss of the year. I'll tell you, this Buffalo Bills team with Amari Cooper, they look different offensively. And for the Chiefs, I thought they were going to come back, but that Josh Allen touchdown dagger really sealed it.
It really did. I mean, I've mentioned it before. I've said it. I said that Josh Allen was a great regular season quarterback against the Chiefs, and look at what's happened. So, I mean, Josh Allen is just a man among boys. He's probably the front runner for MVP right now. I think he overtook Lamar Jackson in the betting odds, but this man is a man possessed in Josh Allen. Amari Cooper edition was absolutely brilliant on the part of general management. And I honestly believe that this Buffalo Bills team, they're right now a half game back of the 1 seed. They can catch up to Kansas City. I don't think they're going to do it. But the Bills being a 2 seed, if I were Kansas City, I'd be afraid.
Oh, you would. But I still think the Kansas City Chiefs will probably go for that 3-peat.
They're going to go for it because they're too good of a team. But they were due to lose a game, especially a game like this where you knew Josh Allen and the Bills were going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you. You knew that was coming. And you knew the result was going to be different. The Chiefs have gotten away with murder plenty of times this year, including the Denver game. This was due to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, the Chiefs, they play Carolina next week. We will talk about that game, but we're not going to dive deeper into that game just because how bad Carolina is. And
oh, yeah, no, that's going to be...
I don't think anybody's going to want to watch that game. Chiefs fans would, but they might turn their TVs off if it's like 56-0.
Yeah, it's not going to be a good game. It's not something I'm going to be sinking my teeth into. It's really going to be a bad game. I think the Chiefs will probably blow them out, not only because it's of the matchup, but also because the Chiefs are pissed the fact that they lost their first game of the year.
Yeah, they're going to be in Charlotte, and I think that's it. The Panthers are 3-7. I mean, the Panthers are nowhere good right now.
No.
Anyways, let's talk about our favorite teams for a minute here. I mean, obviously, we will talk about the Daniel Jones benching in just a little bit. I know you have a lot to say on that, but talk about first the New England Patriots. Man, another near comeback over the Los Angeles Rams. Drake May is starting to grow on me because every game he's gotten better, and he is the quarterback that I've expected. I think Gerard Mayo and our coaching staff has done a great job with this offense. I think the New England Patriots, even though that we're young and inexperienced, we are competing in every game, but we're still not producing results. And I feel like that with the New York Jets probably going to be in dysfunction, heading into next season, the New England Patriots are probably going to be ahead of them.
I mean, the Patriots finishing in third place would be really nice for them to finish the year. I mean, like I said, I see Buffalo and Miami overtaking the Patriots in the AFC East, but to finish in third place in the division, most likely, that's really good for the Patriots because no one thought they'd be that they improved that much. But I do want to mention Drake May for a second. He has improved in his decision making. He has improved in his mechanics. Gerard Mayo has done a great job coaching this defense and all the fundamentals. But like I said, the Rams were just hungrier for a win, and the Rams are in a very feisty race for the NFC West division title. But like I said, the Patriots are just not there yet, but they will be if they continue to progress the way they have.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And also, you talk about the Rams being in a dogfight for the NFC West, which is kind of weak this year. I mean, the Niners, why would they lose to the Seahawks for crying out loud?
I mean, the Seahawks, I thought they were going to lose that game. I didn't think the 49ers would lose that kind of a matchup, but Geno Smith put together one hell of a last drive, and you got to give him credit for that. But the Niners, I mean, they're hurting really bad. They have a bunch of injuries on their staff.
And their defense sucks this year, too.
And their defense is not good. And the worst part is Nick Bosa is probably going to be missing some time with a hip injury. So,
oh, my God.
That could be a problem.
Why are the injuries hitting the Niners already?
I mean,
I really like this team when they're healthy, but I also have a feeling that Kyle Shanahan would want to make another defensive change and bring back his buddy Robert Saleh.
It's possible. I mean, I think losing DeMeco Ryan was the worst thing that could happen to this Niners organization defensively because look at what's happened with DeMeco Ryan since coming to Houston. But this Niners team, they have the injury bug, and that's not really good. If anything, the Arizona Cardinals, who I thought were going to be good this year, they're in first place in the NFC West, which I didn't see coming. I know you didn't see that coming. But you're probably going to get one playoff team out of the NFC West. And honestly, the Niners, with the injuries they got right now, I can't see them winning this week. We'll get into that later. But the NFC West, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. The Arizona Cardinals could go from worst to first this year.
Then we're not supposed to be there. We will talk about them in a minute. But a game where Kirk Cousins didn't have it, Bo Nix is continuing to rise in the Rookie of the Year race with this victory for the Denver Broncos.
This guy has thrown 4 touchdown passes in 2 of his last 3 or 3 of his last 4 games. He's looked phenomenal. The Broncos, coached by Sean Payton, look really good. I think they're going to make the playoffs if they continue this trajectory that they're on. And I think that even though Sean Payton's not coach of the year, I think that he's done a phenomenal job improving this Broncos team from where it was 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, last year wasn't really the year. But the Denver Broncos, they're going to be a scary good football team. Once you surround Bo Nix around the proper weapons, Sean Payton has got this kid under control.
And you know what? You love to see that because you got a veteran head coach and a young rookie quarterback out of Oregon doing his thing, using both his legs and his arm to beat you. And I didn't think that this would be a race for Rookie of the Year. I thought Jane Daniels was going to run away with this Rookie of the Year race, but now Bo Nix has made a conversation.
Well, we got to talk about the oldest rivalry playing at Soldier Field this weekend, the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. What a great football game that we saw from both teams. But the Chicago Bears still lost.
And it's because of Matt Eberflus. Because if you watch the final drive of the Chicago Bears where they put together the field goal, there were 30 seconds left on the clock, and Lou Almirola just let the clock tick down, tick, tick, tick. And they were at the 29-yard line, so it was going to be a 46, 47-yard field goal for the Bears to try and win down 20-19. And then the Packers blocked the field goal to win the game. But this is also 11 straight wins for the Packers against the Chicago Bears. It's a very, very bad look for Matt Eberflus to lose the game the way he did. He could have run a couple plays. He really could have. But again, the way this game played out, again, it falls on the shoulders of the head coach. And Matt Eberflus is a guy that I really think needs to just go.
You think he needs to go because the Bears, you really think that the Bears might need to move into a different direction? Because I would pair Caleb Williams with an offensive-minded head coach. That would be great for him.
Yeah, like I said, Bobby Sloukin is available. Ben Johnson will be available. Like someone other than a defensive-minded coach. And we've talked about that the Bears have not adjusted to the times over the course of their history, and they really need to because look at their state right now. They have not done
With the
anything.
exception for Matt Nagy, though.
Well, Matt Nagy took them to the playoffs when they were an 8-8 team. Like that's not really something that you could brag about. I mean, that's something that and they used 3 different quarterbacks in 2020. Keep in mind, they have not done anything right with the quarterback position. They're inconsistent. Their defense is good, but that's pretty much it. There's nothing good about the Bears offense, and there hasn't been anything good. Even Jim McMahon back in 1985 when the Bears won the Super Bowl, that was a bad offense. So the Bears need to adjust to the time zones of the NFL right now, and they haven't.
No, this is an offensive league now. No, not in a league where you have a decent offense that's not elite, but a defense that could stop you.
Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like you can't have a dinosaur offense and a good defense. It just doesn't work. You need to have a balance.
Yes, I mean, look, the Chicago Bears, when they won the Super Bowl in '85, it was not because of Jim McMahon and Walter Payton. It was that defense that really got it done.
Yeah, and it's the greatest defense of all time. And Mike Ditka
It's
was
the
responsible.
monsters of the Midway. How are the Bears going to bring that back?
They can't bring it back. There's never been a defense that's been that good ever since.
Except for Brian Urlacher.
Well, Brian Urlacher is facing some scrutiny personally with the Chicago Bears in the NFL. I don't want to get into that, but you could bring back Brian Urlacher in some way, shape, or form to be on the Bears staff, but that's really all I can see them doing.
Oh, but Brian Urlacher is the greatest linebacker in Bears history.
Oh, absolutely. Even better than Mike Singletary. The Bears need some good defensive personnel, but also some offensive mastermind that can help them because right now, there's no balance.
Yeah, talk about the luckiest team in the NFL, the Minnesota Vikings. 23-13 win over the Titans. I'm like, that's not a win they should be proud of, number one. A downfall on the Vikings is coming. But you know what? Next year, JJ McCarthy, when he's healthy, the Minnesota Vikings will be better than this.
I mean, listen, the Minnesota Vikings are happy that they're even in playoff consideration right now. They're winning games in the most disgusting fashion ever. And the opponents they play, look at their schedule. They're playing teams that are terrible this year, and they're winning. So that's obviously a good thing. But the fact that you're winning games in low-scoring affairs is also not good. So
listen, they used to be the team that would win by 1 score or less.
And the funny thing is, they're doing that again. They live or die by 1-score games, and they live or die by that. This has been the thing for them for the last few years. I mean, that's just how they win. I mean, they're winning games.
I said beginning of the year, I felt like JJ McCarthy. I said in the beginning of the season, JJ McCarthy as the starting quarterback. The Minnesota Vikings have their own identity on the offensive side of the football, and him and Kevin O'Connell would be the next best head coach and quarterback combo.
But the thing right now is you got to roll with what you have right now. I mean, listen, Sam Darnold is doing enough to win.
He's turning over the ball.
He's turning over the ball, but at least he's actually winning games.
I'm not proud of those wins for the Minnesota Vikings.
Now, listen, the way it's going to work this season is the Vikings are going to make the playoffs. They'll probably be a 5 or 6 seed. They'll play either the Cardinals or the Eagles, and then they'll get kicked out of the playoffs in a landslide, and then they'll have to restart. That's how it goes.
And I think next year they will be a lot better than they were this year.
Yeah, listen, as much crap as we give Sam Darnold, he's not, like I said, he's doing enough. Yes, he's turning the ball over. But what more can you expect? He's doing enough.
Nobody thought he would be that good, but the Miami Dolphins, I mean, since having Tua back from concussion, this team is making a late playoff run, which I really am very encouraged with.
They're trying. I mean, I give them props. They're trying. They're doing everything they could. I mean, they're a game and a half, 2 games back against the Denver Broncos, so there is still plenty of time to rewrite the ship. I mean, Tua's been back and he's been good. I think the main thing with the Dolphins is they gotta hope that other teams in the pecking order that are past them drop a couple games. So the Colts and the Broncos, I think, are 2 teams that really need to fall for them to get back in the playoff mix officially. But they're doing really well.
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders played a good game until the Eagles pulled away in the 4th quarter. Saquon Barkley, what a game, man. I mean, it pains for you to see him have a game like this.
Painful. Just painful. I mean, no, listen, I mean, I think the people and the critics of Nick Sirianni are starting to, calm down a little bit and settle into the fact that this team has won 6 in a row and they're in the 2 seed in the NFC, which is also a good thing. And people have said, and you probably agree with me, the Eagles are probably the one team in the NFC that could give the Lions a scare. Whether or not we get that matchup in the playoffs, I don't know. I mean, the Lions are projected to be the 1 seed unless they drop a game and the Eagles just take advantage. But right now, I see the Eagles being the 2 seed, but I do think that I agree with those theories that Philadelphia could put up a fight against Detroit. But I like where the team's headed.
Oh, yeah, and for Washington, even though they lost, I feel like that this long rest will benefit Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, they need a slump of some kind to help them improve. I know that their bye week is not this week. I think it's week 14 if I'm not mistaken, but they have a long way to go. I think that if you look at the teams in the NFC, like the Rams and the Niners who are injury prone and the Seahawks, I mean, the teams below them in the pecking order are not that good. So I can see the Commanders still staying in playoff position. However, I think that they need to, trace back a little bit and try to get back on their horse in a slow pace. Like, don't try to overthink things or overplay yourself. So I think the Commanders are fine. They just gotta, need a good win to get them back on track.
And they will against a team that's been so bad in the Dallas Cowboys. But the Giants are worse than the Dallas Cowboys. But anyways, what could you say about the Jags-Lions game? Nothing much. The Lions are too good. But for the Jags, why are they crashing down on earth? I really like this team. I really like Trevor Lawrence, but man, what is wrong with those Jags?
Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know what happened. They drafted Brian Thomas Jr. I think part of the problem is Trevor Lawrence has been injury prone. He missed 2 games, and I think the Jaguar Lions game he missed. Mac Jones took over, but they had their worst loss in franchise history this past week against the Lions. They lost by 46 points, and it's funny. Prior to the game, Doug Peterson was asked about job security, and he said, "You know what? Whatever happens, happens." And you got to remember, this isn't the first time that Doug Peterson did something wrong. I mean, the latter half of last...
This is Doug Peterson's. This is not really Doug Peterson's fault.
Well, you know what's going to happen. If the Jaguars finish 2-15 or 3-14, he's gone. That's how it's going to go.
He's scapegoated.
Exactly. But, I mean, you can't fault him entirely for this season, but you probably could. Maybe general management has a hand in this as well. But you also got to keep in mind that last season, the Jacksonville Jaguars were the number 2 seed heading into that Bengals game in week 13, and they collapsed the second half of the year. So this is not entirely the first time saying, oh, okay, Doug Peterson's going to get a pass. He got his pass last year. Jaguars were supposed to make the playoffs, and they didn't. They were supposed to win the division, and they didn't.
Well, we have a new king in that AFC South. It's the Houston Texans.
Yes, sir.
And CJ Stroud having another Pro Bowl type season. But for a second, we got to dive into that Ravens-Steelers game. This was a great football game. But I'm like, Steelers just got lucky.
Baltimore just outplayed themselves. But what I love about the Ravens-Steelers rivalry is that every game between those two teams is the same. A smash-mouth, physical, tough game. And the Steelers thrive in that type of environment more than any other team in the NFL. And as I mentioned to you before, the Steelers are 8-2 right now. But you know what? There's a reason why. Mike Tomlin has done a terrific job putting this team in the position to stay in first place in the division. They won their first division game, and they're going to win their second on Thursday when they play the Browns. So, listen, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, I would be thrilled to be in the position I'm in right now. You're going to be 8-2, possibly 9-2 after Thursday, and there's still so much time left to build your stock and give you confidence. And yes, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields has not been good, but you know what has been good? Managing the roster, putting trust in your personnel. Coaching has been phenomenal. Not just on the coaching staff's part, but on Mike Tomlin's part more specifically.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, you got to give him his roses. I mean, this has been a great head coaching job for him this year. I really think that I'm not going to be surprised if he wins Coach of the Year this year based on the job he's done.
I mean, give him Coach of the Year. He deserves it. I mean, this is on paper. Like Mike Tomlin's been with the Pittsburgh Steelers since 2007. He's had a winning season every year. This is the one thing that Mike Tomlin has had. This is probably the worst team he's had in his 18 years as a coach for the Steelers. And look at where they are. They're 8-2, soon to have a winning season.
They don't give him a lot of credit that he deserves because Coach Tomlin, I think, is arguably one of the best head coaches in the league.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been around this long for a reason. I thought, like, our expectations going into this year, Laurel, if you remember, we said the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to have their first losing season since 2006, and that Mike Tomlin was probably going to be under scrutiny by ownership, and that has not happened. So that just tells you that Mike Tomlin can prove everybody wrong. He's done it before, and he's doing it again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Arthur Smith, I think that was a great choice for Mike Tomlin to serve as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, like, listen, the coaching staff has been impeccable. Head coaching has been impeccable. Defense has been great. I mean, listen, if you look at that staff, that all roster, TJ Watt's your best player, and that's it. I mean, George Pickens is having a good season, but think about it. 2 good players out of 53.
Well, anyways, before we get into our Week 12 picks here, the New York Giants are making a quarterback change, finally, for the love of God.
Finally.
Again, they will start Tommy DeVito against Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It had to happen. Daniel Jones is taking QB3, QB4 reps. Drew Lock is going to be the backup. I feel like Giant fans are going to be chanting, "We want Tommy, we want Tommy."
And you know what? Tommy Cutlets, for what people call him in New York, it's the right thing to do. Daniel Jones was not getting the job done. You and I both know that. And to be honest, I know that, unfortunately, the Giants are not going anywhere this year. And Brian Dable is probably under a little bit of scrutiny because of the way things have gone this season. And it took him this long to actually bench Daniel Jones. But the problem with the Giants right now is they need to draft another quarterback, and they're going to basically get rid of Daniel Jones at season's end because they know he's not good enough. But you're going to eat up the salary cap money that contract took just to start over again. But honestly, to end it on a positive note, Tommy DeVito was the guy I wanted.
Oh, yeah. Let's see if he can show he's the franchise quarterback for the G-Men.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, I don't think Tommy DeVito's the guy going forward. I think that you can probably find a guy like Quinn Ewers or Cam Ward or Carson Beck, but I mean...
What about Shedeur Sanders?
Pass.
Why do you pass on Shedeur?
Well, number one, if you draft him, his father's going to get involved as well, and they'd probably fire Brian Dable just to put Dion as the head coach of the Giants. That's number one. Number two, Shedeur was asked about the possibility of playing for the New York Giants, and he said no comment.
He needs to go to a team where he can be coached.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want anything to do with him. I don't want anything to do with his father. He can go somewhere else. I'll draft someone else.
Deion Sanders just said that he just loves it in Boulder.
I mean, see, here's the thing. And this is something that I mentioned before. This is going to be like a Lonzo Ball situation where you draft the player, but the father's going to be involved in some way, shape, or form. Deion Sanders might still be the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, but here's the problem. He'll somehow put himself into the ownership meetings, the coaching meetings of whatever NFL team Shedeur goes to. And
it's his son.
Yeah, well, it's his son, but at the same time, like, think of it this way. If I had a job and I was in a professional setting and my father butted in, that'd make me look stupid. So I know what I don't want. Like, if I'm a player going to an NFL team, do you really want your father butting into everything that you do with an NFL team?
Absolutely not.
Exactly. Like, that's what's going to happen. Like, if you take Shedeur Sanders, you're going to take the baggage of Deion that comes with it.
Anyways, here now we will talk about our Week 12 picks. First up, we thought Cleveland would be ahead of Pittsburgh because we thought Deshaun Watson was going to be good this year, but oh no, he's not. Looks like the Cleveland Browns are going to start from scratch. They need a new quarterback in the worst possible way. I'm going to go with the Steelers here, not because of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I feel like it's because of Mike Tomlin.
I'm going to go with Pittsburgh as well. I think they get their first winning season again, their next winning season since 2007. So this will be their 18th winning season in a row, which is just remarkable, especially with this roster. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh in this one.
Well, the Houston Texans are hosting a very bad Tennessee Titans team. Like, if you saw how Houston played against Dallas on Monday night, I'm gonna predict the Houston Texans win at home, but I think it's gonna be a 60 burger on Tennessee.
Oh, it's going to be bad. I want Texans all the way.
The Chicago Bears are hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Battle of USC quarterbacks between Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold. I'm going to pick the Chicago Bears. I want to see Caleb Williams get this win over Sam Darnold, who kind of turns the ball over.
I mean, listen, they're both former USC quarterbacks, but I think the Vikings defense is better than the Chicago Bears defense. And the Bears need to pick me up so bad, but I think the Vikings win the game.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then you talk about the Dallas Cowboys visiting the Washington Commanders. Dan Quinn versus Mike McCarthy. It's probably going to be ugly in the nation's capital, where the Dallas Cowboys are probably going to get their butts whooped.
Give me the Commanders all the way. The Dallas Cowboys are just finished. Cooper Rush is not going to give any rush of adrenaline at all. This has just been a disaster.
It has been a disaster for the Cowboys. Did you see that video of Stephen A. Smith working out and then he laughed?
I did not see that. I got to look at that.
Yeah, he finally made a selfie video again.
I think that might be the last one he does all season.
You know what? I think if the Giants beat the Cowboys in Jerry World
on Thanksgiving,
then I could see him do it.
Oh yeah, that would be the icing on the cake.
He would laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would laugh if the Cowboys lose to the Commanders.
Well, but I think the Giants would even be worse because the Giants went to their backup quarterback, and if they win in Jerry's World on Thanksgiving, where the Cowboys are usually good.
Oh, bye-bye to Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, they might get rid of him early because his contract's up after this year anyway, but they could get rid of him whenever they want.
Yeah, it's gonna be this is gonna be a Jerry Jones decision.
Yeah, and I think Jerry Jones has already made up his mind.
Well, the New England Patriots are going to South Florida to take on the Miami Dolphins. You know the New England Patriots don't play well in Miami and Hard Rock Stadium. This is a game where I feel like there's no excuses, but this Patriot team has a hard time playing down in Miami.
Yeah, the Patriots are going to be a team that is really, really – they're trying to fight. They're trying to stay relevant. I think Miami probably gets the win here because they're really fighting hard to get this playoff spot, and I think they're going to do it because the Patriots are not there yet.
No, they're not, but what I like is that they're competing. They keep me on my feet in the fourth quarter to see what they do. If they complete it, they complete the comeback great. If they don't, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if the Patriots put up a good fight, that's all the Patriot fans could ask for at this point.
I think they're way better than they were last year because last year, man, it was a disaster for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a mess for me last year with the Patriots because quarterback play was not good. Bill Belichick was just tired.
Yeah, I agree.
We gave up on the season easily.
Yeah, you just kind of rolled over and basically said, we're done last year.
This year, we're competing.
Yeah, and that's positive. That's an absolute positive.
There were times where people wanted Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt fired, and I'm like, be patient.
Yeah, and look at what's happened.
Look what's happened to the Patriots. They are much better this year. Drake May's going to be good. It's not going to be this year. I feel like we got to give him good weapons next year.
Absolutely.
Well, the Kansas City Chiefs are visiting Charlotte to take on the Carolina Panthers. They're going to Dave Tepper's world.
Not a good game. Not a good game.
Are you expecting the crowd at Bank of America Stadium to be all Kansas City Chiefs fans?
Oh, yep.
Doing the chop and wearing Chiefs gear? Is that what's going to be what type of crowd you'll see at Bank of America Stadium?
Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to expect.
Because You probably won't see a sea of Panthers jerseys just because I don't think people there like Dave Tepper.
Yeah, not at all.
Well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visit the New York Giants. I wish you would go to that game just so that you could see Tommy.
I mean, it's the Buccaneers are not totally out of it from the NFC West perspective or NFC South perspective, but it's not looking good at this point. But I think Tommy DeVito could put up a fight. I mean, he's done it before.
Oh yeah, I'm picking the Bucs, but with Tommy DeVito a quarterback, they're gonna make things interesting. It's gonna benefit Malik Neighbors.
It will benefit Malik Neighbors. I mean, this kid Tommy DeVito can surprise you. He really could. So I'm taking the Bucs, but I think they'll be closer than most people expect.
The Detroit Lions, after coming off a ugly blowout win over the Jags, they're gonna be battle tested against a team that is very sneaky in the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson just got his starting job back. I think a second chance will be worthy for Anthony Richardson. The Lions will probably get a win, but it's not going to be very easy.
I'll tell you what. I think the Detroit Lions they're going to win this game. That's number one. Number two, I think it'll be by double digits, but like 10 points, 14 points. I don't think it's going to be a blowout fashion game.
Probably, you're right about that. And then you talk about now we are going into the 425 slate. The Denver Broncos visiting the Las Vegas Raiders. Last year, the Raiders beat the Broncos because they knew they could get to Russell Wilson. This year, it's a different story. So give me the Denver Broncos in this game. But, there's a lot of speculation about if Mark Davis is going to fire Antonio Pierce after season's end. That's probably not the case. Antonio Pierce is the real deal.
I like Antonio Pierce as a coach. The Raiders are just a really bad organization and a bad roster right now. I'm taking the Denver Broncos easily.
The Arizona Cardinals visit the Seattle Seahawks in an NFC West clash in Seattle and in the 12 and playing in the 12s. So, man, both teams are tied for first place. I want the Cardinals to get this victory in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, to correct you on that one, the Cardinals are one game up on everyone else in the division, but they are in first place. And you know what? I want that story to continue. I'm taking the Cardinals in Lumen Field to get the win.
San Francisco visiting the Green Bay Packers. The San Francisco 49ers are still fighting for their lives. They always have the Green Bay Packers number. I'm going to pick the San Francisco 49ers to win this football game.
I think the one thing that separates this for me is the fact that Nick Bosa is not going to play. And he'll be out for an indeterminate amount of time. And that's beneficial for Jordan Love because that offensive line for Green Bay is spectacular. And when you don't have a disruptor like Nick Bosa coming at you, that's really good for your offense. I'm going to take Jordan Love and the Packers to get the win in Lambeau.
I always said the Niners have had the Packers number.
They do. But I think at some point you're going to get one on them.
Absolutely. My guy, Jalen Hurts, and the Philadelphia Eagles are visiting the LA Rams. They're my Bama boys, and I'm going to roll with the Philadelphia Eagles in this game. Jalen Hurts is going to have a field day with that Rams defense.
The Rams are trying to keep their season alive. They're trying to keep pace with the Arizona Cardinals, much like the 49ers and Seahawks are. But you know what? The way I have it right now, I'm taking the Eagles to win this game, and the Cardinals extend their lead in the division from 1 game to 2 games, which is massive.
If you talk about the Rams here, I really think this Rams team is sneaky good.
They're good.
At this time of the year.
They've turned it around. They started 1-4 because they didn't have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, but now they got both those guys back, and their offense is clicking, which is a positive.
It is, and we're seeing Brian Daboll on my screen here. I mean, I know you'll listen to his press conference about benching Daniel Jones for Tommy DeVito.
Yep.
And Monday night, man, I am gonna be so entertained about this game. It's the Harbaugh Bowl.
Monday Night Football, the one game that everyone loves. But the Harbaugh Bowl should be fun. You got 2 teams who are really good with 2 brothers who are really good head coaches. Justin Herbert's career has turned around dramatically thanks to Jim Harbaugh, and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are always good. So this should be fun.
In this game, who do I want? I'm going to go with Brother John.
I'm going to go brother Jim. I think this Charger defense has massively improved, and I think they're going to go after Lamar Jackson.
That's what we're going to see. I mean, the Chargers, their number one receiver is not really Chark. Quentin Johnson's had a great year. Ladd McConkey, that guy is like Julian Edelman.
Ladd McConkey has had a year that I didn't think he would have coming out of Georgia. He's been really, really solid. And I think he's probably the number one guy, if not Quentin Johnson.
Are you saying that because you think Ladd McConkey's like Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman?
He's very similar with what he can do.
Oh yeah, because when we used Amendola and Edelman, they were Edelman can run deep routes. Amendola ran slots.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Ladd McConkey can do for you.
But Ladd McConkey, that guy's going to be an elite receiver in the league.
He will. He really will. I mean, it's amazing how far this guy is ahead of.
I think Justin Herbert's going to love him. He already does love Ladd.
He already does. And like I said, I love the fact that Jim Harbaugh has finally turned this guy's career around, because what has played Justin Herbert the first 5 years of his career? Bad coaching. And now he's got the coaching that he wants.
Well, then you talk about J.K. Dobbins. He's had a tremendous year running the football.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like the resurgence of J.K. Dobbins. And I think this is going to be a big game for him because he's going against his former team in Baltimore. So I think there's going to be a lot of storylines coming out of Monday Night Football, and I'm really all in for it.
Well, we talk about next week when we do this, when we make our picks, we got 3, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 games on the Thanksgiving holiday. The Chiefs and the Raiders on Black Friday.
Oh.
And then Matt LaFleur versus Mike McDaniel at Lambeau Field. I can't wait for that one with Tua.
Yep.
I'm probably going to wear my Alabama shirt that day just for that.
Yeah, I can see you doing that.
Just for Tua and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
And you know who's also an Alabama guy? Josh Jacobs.
That's right.
I like Josh Jacobs. He's another good running back coming out of the University of Alabama.
And also Derrick Henry came out of Alabama too.
And Trayvon Diggs, who's with the Cowboys, they're playing the Giants. You might actually be eating your turkey when
I feel like low key, I feel like I'm going to enjoy my Thanksgiving this year.
No Daniel Jones.
And the Cowboys suck. When we make our picks on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how we do this next week, I'm taking the Giants. For some reason, I feel confident about beating Dallas. Finally.
You mean in Jerry World, where the Cowboys are winless in Jerry World?
The Cowboys are bad in front of their fans. That's what's even more disturbing. They're bad in front of their fans than they are away.
Let me give you a breakdown of this. Before the game at AT&T Stadium, there's a lot of Cowboy fans that run into their seats, all excited, looking forward to a football game. By the time we hit the fourth quarter, they go this.
Yeah, bag
paper
heads,
bags,
crying. It's kind of amazing the fact that Jake Paul has more wins in AT&T Stadium than the Dallas Cowboys do.
Who's Jake Paul, by the way?
So Jake Paul, for those of you who are unaware, Jake Paul was the guy who fought Mike Tyson this past Friday in a boxing match. And it took place at Dallas, Texas, in AT&T Stadium. And Jake Paul beat Iron Mike cleanly. And that was it. Jake Paul 1, Dallas Cowboys 0.
Also talk about another good Thanksgiving matchup. Caleb Williams versus Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions.
And I'm hoping that the Lions can get off this Thanksgiving schneid, because for some reason they never play well on Thanksgiving, and that's unfortunate. But I think with this team, that's going to change.
You're right. It is going to change, because look if you look at the matchup between the Lions and the Bears, what I think is going to work for the Lions is they run the football well.
Yeah, they run the football well, and Amon-Ra St. Brown's one of the best receivers in the NFL.
And then defensively, they're still good without Aiden Hutchinson.
Well, I think the one thing that they did really well was they got Zadarius Smith at the trade deadline, which I thought was a brilliant move. And Zadarius already made an instant impact with the Lions in his first game against the Jaguars. So, there's a lot to like about this Lions team. And the funny thing is, they're not satisfied with where they are right now. They're not. Like they're blowing teams out of the water, but they're not satisfied. They want to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, if they do, my gosh, you know what I think? Dan Campbell will be drinking beer.
Oh man, just to just look at how far this Lions team has come since Dan Campbell said he wants to bite kneecaps at his press conference.
That press conference was not a fluke at all.
It wasn't a fluke. Like this was a guy that really went through the journey. A team that fought hard but was bad, to a team that was competitive, to a playoff caliber team that almost made the Super Bowl, to now a Super Bowl caliber team in 4 years.
You gotta love that guy's character and his grit and the way he is a no nonsense type coach.
No, I love every second of it, and I think the amazing thing
Here's a
about
question for you:
yeah.
If they lose Ben Johnson to a head coaching job, will the Lions fall back, or do you think Dan Campbell can call plays?
That's a good question. Well, I think there's a strong possibility that they're going to lose Ben Johnson this year. I think that the fact that Ben Johnson decided to stay in Detroit just told you how lucky and fortunate they were for that. Because if they had lost Ben Johnson this year, they would not be this good. And so I think if they lose Ben Johnson next year, would they be this good or would they fall back? I think I'm going to say they fall back because Dan Campbell was a former defensive coordinator before he got the job in Detroit.
He was not a coordinator. He was a assistant head coach and tight ends coach.
So he's not really much of an offensive guy. Dan Campbell loves his defense. I know he was a former offensive assistant and a tight ends coach, but I think defense is more of his specialty, and that's what you have Aaron Glenn for.
Oh, Aaron Glenn has done a great job too, but I think the Lions. I don't think they'll fall back without Ben Johnson, just because I feel like the Lions' offense is still going to be very good with Goff and with St. Brown and Laporta.
Yeah, they got a lot of good personnel, but you also need the right coordinator to bring the offense to life, and that's what Ben Johnson has done. And that's why people in Detroit were so ecstatic that they kept him, because if they had lost Ben Johnson, like I said, they wouldn't be this explosive. Think of it, Loro.
Why do you think Ben Johnson will get a head coaching job this cycle?
Because if you could work well with Jared Goff and your offense can put up 50 points on several occasions over the last 2 or 3 years, you deserve a head coaching job, especially for offenses like the Bears or offenses like, I don't know, the Jaguars potentially, or even the Panthers, where you can get an offensive coordinator job still. But there are several teams out there in the NFL right now that don't have good offenses, and Ben Johnson, if as a head coach and as a leader, would turn that around.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And then anyway, because here's the thing, I think if Ben Johnson coaches the Bears, he will do wonders with Caleb Williams.
He would be fantastic, and I think if he does get the job in Chicago, which I think he might, if depending on how things go, if he gets the job in Chicago, he would read the Lions and dissect the Lions because he knows them better than anybody. So I think the last thing the Lions would want is, well, number one, to lose Ben Johnson, but also number two, to lose him to a division opponent.
It's probably the Dan Quinn thing, because Dan Quinn has done a great job with the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, and we talked about Dan Quinn beating Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyways, now, well, let's talk some baseball here. First off, we got our Rookie of the Year award winners. Talk about Paul Skeens and Luis Gil, 2 pitchers in the National American League. But I'll ask you this: you tell me your thoughts on Luis Gil winning AL Rookie of the Year. I didn't think he would win it, honestly.
I honestly thought Colton Hauser was going to win it. I was very surprised the fact that Luis Gil won it. I think probably part of it was the fact that he had a long string of games where he pitched 7 quality innings without allowing a run early in the year. And then I think he pitched well enough in the playoffs to at least solidify the win. But like I said, I think Colton Hauser was robbed of that because Colton Hauser had a really good season. And the fact that he didn't win surprised me. But Luis Gil, he pitched really well in a lot of games. He was injured for a good portion of the year. But again, I guess the voters saw differently, and I guess they wanted to give it to a Yankee, and here we are.
Well, anyways, NL Rookie of the Year, that was not a surprise. I wished I used them early. I would have used them a whole season of my show league, but didn't, just because of the whole innings thing. But man, Paul Skeens, He's a guy that I think people are going to pay attention to.
This is the guy that I think is the future ace for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think that this guy is got some really nasty pitches, and I think he's a very good quality pitcher. I mean, this is a guy who can pitch 6 or 7 innings in his sleep without allowing a run, if not only one run. I mean, this is a guy that is really solid. The problem with the Pittsburgh Pirates is the fact that they have a terrible, terrible offense, and they need to complement that because Paul Skeens' record would be better if they had a good offense. But
look, here's the thing: when Paul Skeens faced the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, the Pirates' offense was quiet, but the Dodgers' offense got to him.
Yeah, and like I said, you can only do so much against a quality team. Paul Skeens, yeah, he did not pitch well against the Dodgers, but I think eventually, with more years under his belt, more experience at the major league level, he's only going to get better.
Oh, absolutely. Paul Skeens is the guy that I think everybody's going to be watching out for. And I think that the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to be good, but I feel like that the roster needs to improve. I think St. Louis is probably going to take a step back next year. We talked about the Reds being our early favorite to win the Central because of the Terry Francona effect.
Yep.
The Brewers, I still think they'll be good. I mean, they're going to get younger, but I really think that their roster is still good enough to win.
I mean, the thing with the NL Central is the fact that the Pittsburgh Pirates are in a division that's not entirely good. Like, I could see the Pirates finishing second in that division. I really could. I think they can, or even third. I think they can finish in third. I think they're not as good as Cincinnati, and they're not as good as Milwaukee. I think they can finish ahead of Chicago, and I think they can finish ahead of St. Louis.
You're talking about the Pirates finishing ahead of Milwaukee, St. Louis?
Yeah.
But not Milwaukee?
Not Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee can finish second in that division.
And the Cubs. I think the Cubs are going to be a good young team, but they just didn't have a good stretch run.
Yeah, like I said, that the Central is an interesting division that's not entirely good. Like, people don't pay attention to the Central in the National League just because Milwaukee is like head and shoulders above the entire division. But I think come 2025, that will change.
Oh yeah, the Reds are going to be people that people will pay attention to.
Yes.
And then you talk about managers of the year. I gotta say, I'm disappointed that Dave Roberts didn't get a top 3 consideration just because of how well he did. Should have been manager of the year in my opinion. But Pat Murphy, great job. I give him his roses for NL manager of the year. Taking a Brewers team where no one thought that they would be division winners with the departure of Craig Counsell, and then not a surprise to me is Stephen Vogt.
Well, I want to get to Stephen Vogt of all things before I get into Pat Murphy. Stephen Vogt was the hands down winner of the American League Manager of the Year. He deserved that award absolutely. But you want to know why? It's because he took a Guardians team that was almost like infancy stage. That's how young this Guardians team is. I mean, you bring in guys like Bo Naylor, and you brought in guys like John Henry Noel, and you got experienced guys like Jose Ramirez. But the thing with the Guardians is that they have like I said, a really extremely young roster. And Stephen Vogt, as a first-year manager in Major League Baseball, made it work. Not only did you make it work, you made it to the American League Championship Series, where you gave the Yankees a fight for their life every single game. And Stephen Vogt did well with his pitching. He did well with the lineups. He did well with the rotation. He did well with the bullpen. There was not one thing Stephen Vogt did wrong that you could complain about. He did everything that he possibly could. And I like the fact that he stood up like a man at the press conference after the ALCS and said, you know what? It just wasn't meant to be. But you know what? I like where we're headed. And then for Pat Murphy, I didn't expect this at all. I mean, you and I both, you just said it best. The Craig Counsell departure, everything that happened with the Brewers before the season even started, you would have thought the Brewers were going to take a step back after coming in first last year. That was not the case. And the Brewers have a young, talented roster. And I like the fact that what my friend Lily Schumacher, who's a diehard Brewers fan, told me. She said that when Craig Counsell left, he left absolutely nothing for his successor. And that would have been that was Pat Murphy. The roster got better. Jackson Chourio, I think, is going to be a future stud in the National League as a player. I think the Brewers have a really good staff, really good players. I think that this team's going to go places in future years, maybe with maybe the Reds will challenge them for the division, but I still think that remains to be seen. But I do want to give an honorable mention to Carlos Mendoza, who came in second for that award. This is a guy that I think turned the Mets around in a way that nobody thought would happen. And I thought Carlos should have been in consideration, and he was. But the fact that he didn't win and came in second was, it's a disappointment, but you got to give both men their props.
Well, I think that I really think that, Carlos Mendoza had a great first year managing the Mets. Mike Shildt, he had a great year managing the Padres too.
I mean, we had, correct me if I'm wrong, we had like 4 or 5 rookie managers make the playoffs this year. Am I correct about that?
Oh my gosh, that was a lot.
Yeah, well, I know we had Murphy, and we had Shildt, and we had Mendoza, and then Stephen Vogt. Let me think about this for a second. The Yankees had Boone. Boone was a veteran. Dave Roberts was a veteran. Let me see. Well, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. The Phillies had a veteran manager. The Braves had the same manager. Yeah, I think 4 or 5 managers were rookies this year.
Well, anyways, talk about Cy Young awards. I feel like Chris Sale and Turk Skubal are probably going to win it unanimously.
Oh yeah, well, Tarek Skubal definitely unanimous because this was a guy who had. I think he won the Triple Crown in all the Major League stats for the American League. I think he led the league in wins. He led the league in ERA. He led the league in WHIP. And then the playoffs, he was spectacular.
Then you talk about, I forgot to talk to you about the Guardians here. When you played them in the ALCS, did you really like the call? And Brian Anderson, did you think this was the call here when he said "Big Christmas has tied it"? Did it break your heart at all?
But believe it or not, I actually loved that call. When he first said it, I was like, "Wait, what's going on?" But then you figured the call and the scene, like everything that happened, like Jock Henry Noel, the Christmas song that goes Noel, Noel. So it makes sense. I get it. But
Big Christmas.
Yeah, Big Christmas. But I also like the fact that you see the guys on Twitter basically putting Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You" in the background of the call, which I thought was really creative. I'm going to give a shout out to the Cleveland Guardians Twitter account for that. But no, I thought it was a good call.
Yeah, because you had BA for the ALCS, and then you also had in the ALDS, it was Bob Costas.
Well, that was a massive upgrade from Bob Costas. I'll just put it that way.
Bob Costas retired from
college. Yeah, he retired. He retired.
But he's still doing MC stuff for the Hall of Fame.
I'll tell you what. For what it's worth, I've given Bob Costas a lot of crap. But you know what? He had a legendary broadcasting career, and you got to tip your hat to him. I mean, listen, as much as I hated the way he called Yankee games, and you probably weren't too satisfied when he called the NLCS last year when the Dodgers faced the Cardinals. I mean, he's
talking about the Diamondbacks
the Diamondbacks. Yeah, excuse me. He's a legend in the industry, and you got to give him respect for it. So you give him his roses and say, you know what, Bob, you had a great run. Thank you for everything you've done. Enjoy retirement.
Oh yeah, he definitely earned it. But talk about Cy Young Award MVP tomorrow. Do you think it's going to be Ohtani and Judge?
Most likely it's going to be Ohtani. Well, Ohtani, no question, because let me just give you a breakdown. Lindor had a great season, and then Starling Marte, I don't even know, or no, Ketel Marte, I don't even know why he even made the nomination process. I don't even know how he got nominated. Ketel Marte didn't have a spectacular year at all, so I was really surprised. So I think it's Ohtani's to lose, and then the American League side, I'm actually intrigued the fact that Juan Soto actually got the nomination for AL MVP. I think Judge wins it, but the fact that Juan Soto got the nod to be a candidate for it, I think is actually very interesting.
Anyways, now talk about Juan Soto here. He had his free agent meetings in Newport, California, and I heard that he said that the New York Yankees met him. It went pretty well. Met 2 hours, and Juan Soto pointed out where he would like the Yankees to improve.
And you know what? That's exactly what you want. If you're Hal Steinbrenner, who was also part of that meeting, you want to make sure that you listen to the player. If you listen to the player and you give them what they want and you listen, that's the best thing for an owner and the best thing for a player to want. If you pay attention to what the player is saying and you satisfy their needs, that's confidence. That's a confidence booster. And the fact that Hal Steinbrenner said that the meeting went well is a big, big sigh of relief. But it's also not a sigh of relief the fact that the Red Sox and the Dodgers and a couple other organizations have yet to meet up with him.
Well, the Dodgers met with Juan Soto Tuesday.
Okay. And how'd that go?
I heard it went pretty good. I didn't agree with like when they said they would offer him a 1 or 2 year deal just for to save money or something like that. But I have a feeling that with the Ohtani deferrals, if the Dodgers were to offer Juan Soto a contract, it would be in the range of 12 years, $600 million.
And I think that's the baseline of what he's looking for. I think he's looking for 12 years, $600 million. I think he's looking for that. But the fact that the Dodgers initially said in their meeting, which was basically what you said, when they would give him a 1 to 2 year contract, that's not exactly what Juan Soto is looking for. He's looking for a contract that can keep him with one team for the rest of his career. And if you're going to give him a 1 2 year contract, that's not good. But you mentioned a key factor, the deferrals for Shohei Ohtani's contract. That's massive. So, I mean, the Dodgers are the defending World Series champions. You got to remember that lasting image of Juan Soto staying in the dugout, watching the Dodgers celebrate could probably mean something. Maybe it won't, but it's still a confidence booster for the Dodgers and for the Yankees, the fact that their meetings went well. But I think the Yankees probably have the edge in that case.
And then the Mets, too. The Mets are probably going to meet with him. The Red Sox met with him, and Juan Soto was very impressed with the Boston Red Sox.
Well, that's scary. I mean, the Boston Red Sox are a very interesting wild card. The fact that they're even in this conversation is actually kind of shocking because the Red Sox are a team that, yeah, they have Alex Cora, but this is a team that's been underperforming their expectations for the last couple of years now. And you figure that Boston would be better. Maybe Alex Cora has something to offer. Maybe ownership has something to offer for him. But if Juan Soto goes to Boston, there's probably going to be significant changes to the roster in that sense in Boston, you would think.
Yeah, I'm thinking the Dodgers will probably be. I'm thinking that in my show league and in real life, if the Dodgers get Juan Soto, I have them hitting 3rd or 5th in the Dodgers lineup.
Yeah, and then I think if the Yankees keep him, I think the lineup is going to be the same. But there's still plenty of time. I think the fact that the Mets with him, I obviously know what the Mets are thinking. You know, Steve Cohen's got this big wallet, and he's probably going to throw as much money as he can at Juan Soto. But the problem is not the money. The money's not the problem. The problem for getting a guy like Juan Soto is the direction that you want to go as a franchise. If Juan Soto is convinced in the direction that you're going in as a franchise and as a team, that's going to be more compelling than throwing $600 million at him just because.
Oh, yeah. And then you talk about Roki Sasaki. Do you really think that Roki Sasaki's is it a foregone conclusion that he's going to be a Dodger, or do you think other teams are looking at him?
Well, you mentioned the demographics that come along with playing with the Dodgers. You got guys like Ohtani and Yamamoto who are there right now, and they're probably involved in the recruiting process for Sasaki. So I think that that's beneficial for LA. Plus, they're the defending World Series champions. So I think that Roki Sasaki, I think, is the clear favorite to go to LA.
Absolutely. He'll probably sign a minor league deal, and then we'll see where we go from there. It's not going to be a 9-figure contract.
No.
It's going to be similar to how Ohtani signed his first major league contract with the Angels.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, even though the Ohtani deferrals aren't game-changing, it's still a big number. Like, Ohtani's probably getting 9 digits, but that doesn't necessarily mean that opens you to pay a rookie 9 digits from Japan. I think that there has to be a balance. So, like I said, especially if he's going to get a minor league contract, minor league contracts aren't typically 9-digit figures. So, I would say that if you're going to sign Roki Sasaki, if you're the Dodgers, you give him like an 8-digit. So, like $50 million, $75 million, something small.
Well, anyways, now let's talk about some basketball here. There's a big question that we got to talk about here. I mean, the Sixers had a team meeting, but the question is Joel Embiid a locker room cancer for the 76ers?
It's looking like it. I mean, you look at what Joel Embiid has done, shoving a reporter, cursing to the media, and then playing the way he's been playing, which has been very, very half effort. Like, he has not been putting in the work at all since he came back from injury. The Sixers are, I think, the worst record in the Eastern Conference is 2-11, tied with the Wizards, which is not a good conversation to be in. So I think right now, if you're the Sixers right now, they had to have a team meeting. Tyrese Maxey apparently called Joel Embiid out, which is even worse because this is Joel Embiid's team supposedly. But I think Embiid is losing patience with the media, with the team, with the city of Philadelphia, and I think his time is coming to an end slowly.
Talk about the Lakers here for a minute. I mean, the Lakers are undefeated in group play. Are the Lakers now legitimate title contenders?
I mean, they're playing really well. I mean, they're like the third best team in the Western Conference behind Golden State and Oklahoma City, which I think is really amazing. I'm really surprised the Golden State Warriors are number one in the West because they lost Klay Thompson. But the Lakers I want to get into for a second. This kid Dalton Connect has been very, very useful for this Lakers squad. And I also like the fact that even though you drafted Bronny James in the NBA draft, I like the fact that you put him down to the G League almost after you gave him 2 minutes on the floor with LeBron, just because you want Bronny to develop. You don't want to throw him in there just because he plays with his dad. So the fact that they sent him down after 2 minutes on the floor with his father, that he sent him down where he can get better. So I think the Lakers are playing their cards right.
Yeah, and then yesterday talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers losing for the first time this year. But you know what? The Cleveland Cavaliers are for real.
They are. I still think that loss to Boston, I think just proves one thing. That Boston is the head of the table for a reason. They're the defending NBA champs for a reason. Cleveland was down by 17 at the half. They came back. They trimmed to 3 to end the game. So they lost by 3, but it could have been a lot worse. I like the way Donovan Mitchell has been playing. I think their defense could be a little bit better. I think they did not shoot the three-pointer as well as they could have in previous games. But I think Cleveland can still make the playoffs, and I think they can make a good playoff run. But as far as being the best team in the Eastern Conference, that's out of the question now.
Yeah, and then you also talk about the Lakers. So the Lakers' next game is tomorrow against the Orlando Magic, and the Orlando Magic are a very solid team.
Yes, I think the Lakers can probably win that. I also like the fact that LeBron James is turning back the clock, it seems. The guy had 4 straight games with the triple-double, which I thought was amazing for someone his age. I mean, this is a guy who's going to be, 40 in December?
Yes, 40 in December.
Wow. Unreal. But I like the way this Lakers team is playing. I think that they've surprised me. I think the biggest issue, and this is one thing that Laker fans have to keep an eye on, can Anthony Davis stay healthy full season? Because if he doesn't, you know what that creates. Problems.
Yeah, it does create problems here. You're right about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, here, that being said, now, do you have any college football playoff stuff to talk about?
Oh, yes, I absolutely do. So, for those of you who are following the college football playoff selection show that happened last night, you will know that the rankings are as follows. So, the 1 seed are the Oregon Ducks. The 2 seed are the Texas Longhorns. The 3 seed is the Miami Hurricanes. And then the 4 seed is the Boise State Broncos, surprisingly. Those 4 seeds get a bye. Remember, for those of you who don't know what the college football playoff format is with 12 teams, it's 5 conference champions and 7 at-large teams. It's kind of a similar approach to March Madness. But, so, it's Oregon, it's Texas, it's Miami, and it's Boise State as the top 4. The 5th conference champion is the 12th seed, and that right now is BYU, who lost to Kansas this past week. And the 7 at-large bids right now are Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, Notre Dame, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia. Let me make sure I count that. And Notre Dame. So those are your 7 at-large bids. And we have a couple interesting games Coming up in week 13, I'll start off with this one. Indiana, who's undefeated right now, faces Ohio State at Columbus. And Kurt Signetti is the first-year head coach for the Indiana Hoosiers. He's got this program rolling. This could be an interesting game. I think that Ohio State is favored by 2 touchdowns in this game. That sounds like a lot, but it should be a really good game. And then you also got other games that are kind of under the radar, like Army, who's ranked 19 in the polls, versus Notre Dame, who's a playoff team. So to keep an eye on this for a second, Notre Dame and Army play at Yankee Stadium on Saturday. If Army wins this, that would be massive for them and detrimental for Notre Dame, because one of the things you got to keep in mind is that Notre Dame does not play in a conference. They are an independent team. They already lost to Northern Illinois second game of the year, so Notre Dame's on thin ice at this point. Army is undefeated. They're 9-0 in the AAC, which for those of you who don't know, that's the American Athletic Conference. And if they win this, they're going to guarantee being in the top 12. But I think another thing you got to keep an eye on, they got to win their conference to get into the playoff, because even though the AAC is not good, you still have to go undefeated and win the AAC. And beating Notre Dame, forget about it. They would be a shoo-in at that point. But then you also got UTSA, which is the University of Texas Southern, which is UTSA, University of Texas Southern Atlantic. And then you also got Navy in the traditional Army-Navy game. But then before that, you also got the AAC championship game on December 7th. So the Army's a shoo-in for the AAC championship game. They got to win that, as well as the other 2 games in the previous year. The Navy game, if they lose that, would not hurt them, but it would be great to win the Army-Navy game because of pride. So that's my college football update.
Oh, yeah. But anyways, Matt, thanks for that. We'll look forward to making that. But anyways, have a good day, everybody.
Good night, everybody.